Hi, this is Jeff Heaton. In this video, I'm going to take a look at TensorFlow 2.0. We're going to see just kind of a first look at this. This is March 2019, so TensorFlow has not yet released the 2.0 version. So we're going to look at some of the changes that you need to make to existing source code, particularly Keras, but some of the direct TensorFlow graph code as well. I'm going to use my course Applications of Deep Neural Networks at Washington University as an example for this. So let's take a look at some of the code for this and see some of the changes that you might need to make. And of course, if you find this kind of thing interesting, please subscribe to my channel and click the little bell so that you're notified of any additional videos that I create. Okay, let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do is open up a terminal window, and we're going to execute the following command. Now, I'm showing this on a Mac, but these commands are exactly the same for Windows. Now that we have this, I am going to do conda activate TensorFlow, and now we're in our new environment. So now let's install some general purpose data science, machine learning type packages that I usually like to have there. I'll put this code in the description so that you can get it from there, but I'm just going to copy and paste. And now we'll do one last housekeeping task. We will go ahead and execute this command that essentially installs it into my Jupyter notebook so that I'll have a kernel called TensorFlow 2.0 that I can work with. Now we're going to actually install TensorFlow 2.0. This is the name of the command that you use for pip. Now, sometime in the spring of 2019, this is going to become the standard version of TensorFlow. And simply doing a pip or conda install TensorFlow will get you this. But at this point, while 2.0 is still pre-release, we're going to have to install it this way. So I will just copy that. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and pip install it rather than conda, because conda I have to use a special channel. So pip install tf-nightly 2.0. Okay, it should be pointed out too that this is the nightly build. So this is whatever has been checked in and passed automated testing the night before. This is experimental software. And production-grade software from TensorFlow likes to cause enough problems, so experimental causes potentially even more. If you run into some issues installing this, just post those in the comments. If I can offer any insight, I certainly will. I monitor the comments. I always like to do a quick test at this point. So run Python. You're in Python now. Import TensorFlow as TF, and then print tf.double_, version $. Happiness is seeing the version that you expect there, 2.0. It's a dev version, so it is experimental. Keep that in mind. And now we're going to quit out of here. Okay, now there's no reason to install Keras because this is already provided in TensorFlow 2.0. So let's go ahead, and I want to show you how to actually convert code that was written prior to TensorFlow 2.0 to the new version. Now, I'm going to just use my class examples from the course that I teach on deep learning as an example. This focuses mainly on Keras, but we do have some straight up TensorFlow code as well. So we'll see both of those. How to handle every nuance of every piece of code, especially outside of Keras, is well beyond the scope of what perhaps even 3 or 4 videos could actually do, probably a whole series. So I'm going to focus primarily on Keras and some just basic differences between TensorFlow 2.0 and predecessors. I definitely don't use every aspect of TensorFlow directly. In fact, I normally use it mainly through Keras. I'm definitely not going to produce something that covers aspects of TensorFlow that I don't even work with. So we're going to go ahead and grab the code from my course website. There's a variety of ways to do this. It's at GitHub, Jeff Heaton, and I'll go right to the T81558 course. You can just download the zip if you're more comfortable with that. I'm just going to quickly grab it with a get. So we'll do get clone that. Now that we have that, I'm going to move into the directory, and I'm going to launch Jupyter. notebook. And that's my core. I'm going to go ahead and open up module 1. And let's go ahead. I've got a bunch of these on here. You won't have these most likely, but we'll go to TensorFlow 2.0. If you didn't get that pop-up, you can just choose it with kernel, change kernel, and pick anything. Okay, always run these functions that I have at the top of each of these course modules. Sure that ran. Now, the last time this was run for my course, TensorFlow version 1.12, this should now display or show us our first 2.0 error, but this should display the version. So let's run it. We'll actually get an error. Module not found. So you'll get lots of these. Module not found Keras. Now this has changed a while back. You could always do tensorflow.keras or just Keras. All of my code uses Keras, so you need to change that to tensorflow.keras. And now we run it again. So that's the first thing to be on the, and likewise we need it here. So that's the first thing to be on the lookout, is to make sure that you're using tensorflow.keras and not just Keras. So that's the first thing to look for. Now let's go to another module. Let's go to this module where I start to actually introduce TensorFlow, and we'll see some more interesting errors that you might run into. This is using TensorFlow without Keras yet. Pick that. Set the kernel, same as before. We'll run these functions at the top. Should not generate an error. This little snippet should work. It just tells you what version you're in. 2.0. Now in TensorFlow, graphs still exist in 2.0, but in previous versions you had to do everything through graph. Now you have something called eager execution, and eager execution is familiar to you if you're a programmer. You simply execute commands and they execute immediately. You don't build up this graph and then try to put values into it, get your results when you execute the whole thing. So if we just run this part right here, it's not going to work, but let's see what error we will get. Module TensorFlow has no attribute interactive session. Well, these sessions are essentially gone in TensorFlow 2.0, so we're going to remove this line. We're not going to create an interactive session anymore. So if you're trying to convert examples that were written for something older, this will go. But we're going to remove this. This shows how you can calculate a Mandelbrot series and there'll be a nice picture at the end. So we'll run that. We'll still get an error. TensorFlow has no global variables initialize. So we go up to that one as well. That's right here. That would have basically copied those values in. We don't do that. We're using eager execution. So now let's run the same example again, see what our next error is. No attribute run, and it's not even defined. So this is what's going to change a lot. So essentially what you were doing is you were building this graph, which culminated in step from these two parts of the graph. And then you were going to run them for 200 iterations. We don't do it like that anymore. So we're going to get rid of this, and we are going to essentially take all of this that was created before. So this was normally creating a graph that you would compute as every time you called that run command. And now we're essentially taking it and putting it down in here. Indenting is extremely important in Python. Of course, don't forget what was in the step. That's operating on ZS and NS. So once ZS and NS are essentially created, I can put it in here. Okay, that's the end of that. By all means, our biggest change to it. I doubt it'll run at this point, but let's see what the next thing we need to fix is. Trying to eval in eager mode. Yeah, you don't do it like that. So we won't call eval on it now. We're going to actually call numpy on it. That'll convert it to a numpy object, and that way it can be displayed as a fractal, because our display fractal up here is expecting a numpy. Now we run it, it appears to be running, and you can now see the Mandelbrot. Now let's look at these other examples I had of calling TensorFlow directly. You can see session here. This is going to obviously cause you a problem. TensorFlow has no session. So we will essentially remove that. All of this code up here is essentially just fine. Now this is eager execution. So this is actually really... So let's look at what it was doing before. The session, obviously that goes, but we were going to run this product calculation, which is a matrix multiply of matrix 1 by matrix 2. So this was building the graph, and then we would execute it. This is eager execution. So product, it gets multiplied and executed right there. You don't even need this intermediate step. Now we basically do product. One thing that you'll notice about converting TensorFlow old to 2.0, you're deleting lines as you're doing this. This makes me happy. This is like when I learned Python for the first time coming from Java. Your fingers spend much less time typing, which is a good thing. We're coders, not typists. So let's run that, and we get it. Okay, so it's printing out a tensor. Maybe you want that just as a number, though. Just do float product, and there you go. So that essentially took these two constants, did a matrix multiply on them, and gives you the result. Now this next one that I had was essentially trying to show you how you would modify a variable. So TensorFlow 2.0, just like the old one, has variables and constants. So we're going to get rid of our interactive session, just like before. We don't need to see that happen again. Initialize or run. You don't run things like that with eager execution, so we're going to get rid of it. So we're defining that same, before they were both constants, now it's a variable and a constant, and we're going to perform a subtraction. So again, we're just going to print it out. And if we run this now, we get that tensor. And if you want to look just like the old one that I had before, you can do numpy, and it'll return it as a numpy object. So now, the thing I was demonstrating before is that you can reassign the x. Now, you're not going to run it like this. Again, this is great. We're deleting code to make it compatible with a new. That's awesome. So we run that. We don't really care about the return. And you're not going to evaluate it anymore. You're going to, and also too, this is something I did wrong when I first did it, and this is really a dumb mistake. I can call my own mistakes dumb, because they are. Did this, and I thought, this is not cool. I reassigned to x, and this didn't change. I was thinking in graph mentality. So we essentially need to perform this that doesn't update that other variable. It's just like regular programming. So we're going to copy that, put it here, put that there, run it, and now you get the result you would expect, the 1, 3. Don't need to close the session. Love deleting code. Fewer lines of code are fewer lines to break. So that's just the basics of some of the stuff that you will change around to get some of these examples from TensorFlow to work with TensorFlow 2.0. Now let's look at an actual neural network. For this, we're going to go to Module 4. Now there's other changes that I'll make in these to upgrade them to TensorFlow 2.0. I'm not going to push those to GitHub until TensorFlow is official. Right now we're in the spring 2019 semester. I will start pushing that probably once the semester ends. I don't upgrade TensorFlow's and Keras versions in the middle of semesters. So we'll run the helpful functions just like before. This is a good example. We're going to basically fit a neural network to the iris dataset. Now, I'm going to just run it, knowing full well this is going to explode. No module Keras. Okay, so we've had all this. We've seen all this before. So we'll do TensorFlow. Do that. Okay, it should be ready to run, right? Nope. TensorFlow Keras layers core. Okay, now this is where things get a little more complicated, but not much. If your code is all based on Keras, you're in really pretty good shape. I had to go look these all up. These are just things that are moving around. They decided the old structure of where things were was just too complicated, so they made a bunch of breaking changes and moved everything. Basically, you drop the core is all that you do. But to do that, to know to do that, you can do TensorFlow documentation, go to the API documentation, and we want it for Python, and 2.0. So now you can see the structure of all of these. So this tf.compat, all of these things, This is what I ended up doing a lot, was basically just, when I was first getting used to 2.0, was going through here, and we have a holiday called Easter. I think a lot of countries celebrate that, but you hide eggs and then you go look for them. This is the TensorFlow Easter egg hunt. They do this a lot with each version, but they really did it in this version. So if you would have looked through there, you would realize that layers core, I guess they figured it was just too much typing to do the .core, so they made a breaking change. So you run this, and now it works. You are good to go. So this example works. So if your Keras code is going to be really probably in pretty good shape. Most of this other stuff will really work just fine. Alright, so this is neural networks, so we've got to do at least one computer vision demo, or this would not be right with the world. This is all just like before. So let's run this code. We're going to define the convolution neural network. So let's not see the same old errors we've seen before. Next, error, no errors. Wonderful. So thanks for watching this video. I will continue to adopt this version of TensorFlow probably at the end of the spring 2019 semester. So you'll see lots of updates to my deep learning course to show you how to make use of this new change in TensorFlow. As always, if you found this video interesting, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching.